Hey everyone, God bless you. Christ is risen. Thanks so much for tuning in. I've prepared a reflection for you today that I've entitled Ending Atheistic Education. It's a reflection upon the Supreme Court decision today that was quite disappointing, actually. But I'd like to use it as a springboard for some reflection, hopefully that will lead to better outcomes. This case, many who care about free education in America have been watching very closely. It comes, in fact, from the state of Oklahoma. I'll tell you a bit more about it in just a second. But we live in the United States with a very restricted educational system. Not only is it a poor educational system by all metrics when compared to other developed nations, very sadly. I'm making this reflection from the state of California, and we are some of the poorest of the poor stats in American education, sadly. Not only do we have a very poor education system at the moment, but we also have no freedom in that education. So we are required in our country to fund a very inadequate system to support the public school system with our tax dollars. Millions of American citizens who do not use the public school system are forced, in fact, to fund the public school system, even if they despise it. And in fact, that is the case. That's especially the case in the state of California. I myself very much view our state educational system as a system that is anti-Christian, very much targeted against traditional faith, and with incredible bias. And yet, our property taxes, whether we like it or not, go to funding that system. Some states in the U.S. have voted for school choice or for free education. And that is wonderful. Recently, numerous states, although it's still a minority in our country, like Florida, have allowed the tax monies that are paid to be directed to the school of choice by the taxpayer. Seems very reasonable to me. I can't hardly imagine how anyone who is an American could possibly oppose such a thing, to allow that kind of freedom. However, in the courts today, that freedom was tested. This all comes from Oklahoma. This is where this controversy that was resolved today in the Supreme Court began. The question at hand is, can the state of Oklahoma provide funding for religious charter schools? And this is the background. June 2023, the 5-member Oklahoma statewide virtual charter school board approved St. Isidore of Seville's operation application in a 3-2 vote. This is a small Catholic virtual school that applied to be supported just like any other charter school, so that those who choose this as their form of education can be supported by their tax dollars. And the statewide charter school board approved this application. That was responded to by the state attorney general, Gentner Drummond, who sued the board, arguing that the approval was illegal and fretting that the move would, quote, open the floodgates and force taxpayers to fund all manner of religious indoctrination, including radical Islam or even the Church of Satan. Oh, I see. Giving freedom to the 70 million Catholic Christians in America who have to pay double to have their kids educated the way that they want is somehow going to allow the Church of Satan to be supported or radical Islam. This is very weak. This is a very weak response of the state attorney general, but it provided justification, at least sound bites, to oppose this extension of educational choice to the Catholic community who want to participate in the St. Isidore of Seville online school. By the way, there is no Church of Satan. That is completely made up. Satanism and radical Islam are great evils. And if they are such great evils, then they should not only not be funded educationally, they should not be tolerated in the United States of America. Let's just face up to this ridiculous Satanist movement, this little dinky show. Let's just acknowledge what it is. It's not a religion. It's not legit. It has no rights. It is a joke. It is an absolute joke. Let's just say what it is. And if radical Islam is a great evil that we're afraid would germinate here, then forbid it. Then forbid it. But that's not what this is about. Freedom of school choice, having school choice, freedom of education is something impacting millions, tens of millions of Americans. Millions and millions of mostly Orthodox, Catholic, and Protestant families who are paying twice for their children's education. They pay for their children to be properly educated in a healthy and godly environment, and they also pay their taxes to support the public schools, which they often refuse to put their children in. The case sparked a split among Oklahoma's top Republicans. The Trump administration and the governor of Oklahoma, Kevin Stitt, supported the charter school and welcomed the charter school board's decision. The decision itself of the Supremes is very sad today, very sad. I was waiting for a wonderful decision, I thought, based upon the discussion amongst the Supreme Court justices and the precedents that had been set for the last few years. I thought we would have soon a really great breakthrough for educational freedom in America and religious freedom as well. What we did was get the exact opposite. It looked like the Supremes were going to overturn this. They had 2 hours of discussion this last month, and those who observed the discussion amongst the justices felt that there was going to be a great decision made for both educational choice and religious freedom. What we got was a split vote, a tie 4-4, deadlocking the vote. Unfortunately, the consequence of that is that the previous ruling of the Oklahoma State Supreme Court to nullify the decision of the charter school board will stand. Taxpayer funding for Catholic or religious schools will not be permitted. And we won't even know who voted because no written statement will be made by the court because no decision was made. It was a split, and therefore there is no majority decision, and we're not going to hear any more about it. Let me read a little bit of commentary from Amy Howe in the SCOTUS blog about this decision, and especially about why Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett recused herself. She was the one who didn't vote, which allowed for this decision to be split. And most people know that Justice Barrett is a practicing Roman Catholic and a big supporter of Christian education. It's just too bad that she had ties that were so close to some of those who were involved in this decision that she had to recuse herself, or else I think we can say fairly confidently it would have been a 5-4 decision, and it would have been a new day in the United States of America with regards to the respect for religion and for freedom in education. So here's a little bit of the commentary from Amy Howe. The charter school was represented at the Supreme Court by the Religious Liberty Clinic at Notre Dame's Law School, where Barrett taught for 15 years before becoming a federal judge and later a Supreme Court justice. Nicole Stell Garnett, who is a law professor at Notre Dame and a leading advocate for allowing the use of public funds at religious schools, is a close friend of Barrett's. In fact, Barrett is godmother to one of Garnett's children. Since 2017, the justices have sided with parents and religious institutions in 3 challenges to state policies that barred them from receiving education-related funds that were available for secular but not religious recipients. First, they ruled that Missouri violated the Constitution when it barred a church preschool from a state-run program to resurface its playground. In 2020, they ruled that Montana could not exclude religious schools from a tax credit program used to provide funding for children to attend private schools. And in 2022, they invalidated a Maine policy that allowed public funds to be used to pay tuition at non-sectarian schools, but not at religious schools. So those are 3 fantastic precedents that informed most people's hopes that the decision today would be one in favor of educational freedom and religious freedom. At the April 30th oral argument, several of the justices, including critically Chief Justice John Roberts, suggested that the charter school case was different from the trio of cases in which the court had ruled against the state. Those cases, Robert suggests, involve fairly discrete state involvement, while the state's involvement in the operation of a Catholic virtual charter school would be a much more comprehensive involvement. The justices also seemed concerned about what the impact of a ruling either for or against the state might be. On the one hand, Justice Elena Kagan warned a ruling for the charter school board might require a state to approve a religious school whose curriculum bears little resemblance to a traditional public school. Well, I think Justice Kagan, that is exactly the point. The reason that Orthodox people and Catholic people and Protestant people want to have their own schools is because they don't want the curriculum that has been developed over the last 50 years and that is constantly developing in a more aggressive secular direction. That's exactly why we want the freedom to have our children educated in traditional Christian educational norms. So yes, Justice Kagan is right that if a ruling for the charter school might require the state to approve a religious school whose curriculum bears little resemblance to a traditional public school, exactly true. Exactly true. How is that a reason not to grant freedom to Orthodox Christians, Catholics, and Protestants who want traditional education? After more than 2 hours of debate, the vlog continues, the justices appeared divided. Thursday's order confirmed that with Barrett not participating, they were unable to find 5 votes for either outcome. And because of the split, no written decision is issued. We also don't know who voted which way. Because of the split, a major advance in religious liberty and educational freedom in America was lost, at least for now. I'd like to say, though, a word about how this impacts me. And I think in some sense I'm a typical priest in America and my parishioners because the impact is tremendous. And I can't tell you how discouraged I am by this lack of support from the Supreme Court for religious freedom and educational freedom in America. As a priest for decades, I have tried with all of my love and all of my prayer and effort to help get all the hundreds of young people in my parish out of our soul-destroying public schools in California. Now, I recognize that there are many places in America where the public schools are much better. I know this by visiting there. I know this because I've also had hundreds of parishioners leave the state in the last decade and move to more sane places educationally. Texas, for instance, Idaho, Arizona. These are places that have received hundreds of my own parishioners. And I have heard from them about their schools. I had a conversation recently about parishioners who were in Texas. Their children were in the public schools, but their priest was visiting. And pastors were there every day, praying with the children and offering Bible studies after school. And so making up for the corrupted, atheistically formed secular public educational system and curriculum by these supplements, which is certainly a lot better than what we do here in California when we try to make children transgender and promote homosexuality, which we do constantly by our clubs, mandated clubs on all of our junior high and senior high campuses to promote immorality, and to demonize clergy like myself who maintain the Ten Commandments. We're evidently really terrible people for doing that. So I recognize that there is a variety, but the school curriculum, the public school curriculum itself is deeply corrupted. Absolutely terrible. And it is very sad that my effort to be able to help the young people in my own parish receive decent, non-atheistic education is so damaged by a decision like this by the Supreme Court because it's simply impossible for many parents in California to support both the public school system financially through their property taxes and private school tuition. Our schools shove immorality down the throats of our students. They teach on the principle of atheism, whether they acknowledge it or speak about it or not. There can be no references to God, no references to the Bible. There can be no prayer. This is called atheism, if you didn't know. To learn, grow, develop, examine, study the world and all aspects of the world without reference to God, without reference to prayer, without reference to the Bible. This is called atheism, atheistic education. We may not call it that. They may not even know that that's what they're doing in promoting an atheistic curriculum. But when God on principle must be excluded, all reference to him, to his holy word, and to prayer, that is called atheistic education, whether you like the term or not. It doesn't matter. That's what it is. You don't have to always be with your nose in books by Karl Marx to be functioning in an atheistic cesspool educationally, and that is exactly what we have here. This court case had the chance to blow this half-century experiment of atheistic education in America to smithereens, but we missed the opportunity. We could have blown it back to Hades, where it originated from. You do recognize that this formal approach to our public school system is only as old as 1963. This is my lifetime. My lifetime. Americans didn't used to be so stupid. The vast majority of our history had God, pastors, prayer, the Bible at the center of education. We need to end the reign of atheistic education in America and reaffirm the foundation for freedom in education in our land. Parents should be able to direct their tax dollars to an education that they believe in and that they support. Now we will have to continue the massive prejudice versus religious education in America for most states at a time when many Christian schools are closing due to costs. The nearest Catholic school to me, which I literally can see from outside of my study window, just shuttered its windows, its doors after 46 years. Many Orthodox schools and educational vendors and co-ops are starting all around the world as people pour into the Orthodox Church here, and especially in the United States of America. But unfortunately, we have had our ability to support these schools completely undermined by this half-century of really bogus law, secularistic law. Being forced to pay for secular schooling, it's just killing us. And it's killing our efforts to build Christian academies and schools here. One of the things that keeps me up at night, literally, is the need to financially support properly our own parishes' families and their educational efforts. Our homeschooling co-op, our St. Andrew Academy, and those who are trying to both live in California and give their children a proper education. If we had justice in our state, many more of my parishioners would be able to support their children to receive a loving, God-fearing education without sending the family into the negative every month. By the way, this is not that difficult to accomplish. And you don't have to be a super dedicated spiritual nation, even though I would like that, in order to do this. England does this. When I lived in England, my family benefited from their religious and educational freedom. Families there can choose where they want their tax money to go. And so when we lived there, my older sons were supported to go to the Roman Catholic high school. My middle children went to an Anglican school. My youngest children went to a state school. How come England can do it with no fusseria and we can't? We can't. I thought we broke away from England 250 years ago next year to become the land of the free. Well, it's clearly not the case with regards to education. We are the farthest thing from the land of the free when it comes to education. Don't think that principled secularism, secular humanism, which inspires our public education in America, isn't a religion. Don't think that. That's nonsense. It is a religion. It's a very bad religion that has had very bad fruit. Religion is inescapable for human beings. Even atheism is a religion per se, often fanatical if we can make any judgments from the 20th century. And all the human beings who have been murdered by fanatical atheists. The one time the human race was insane enough to try atheism, which all previous cultures knew was the height of foolishness. And yet still, secular humanism is the base of our educational system. It's time to put that to rest. I recently gave a talk, in fact last night, on the elder and confessor, Father George Calciu, who suffered in the Romanian prisons under the communists for so many years, 21 years, and then came to America and spent the last 21 years of his life here. Father George, an incredible person. I'm doing a series on new saints and elders. And he was very clear. He was very clear. After he had become ordained a priest and was teaching French language and literature and theology there at the seminary in Bucharest, Father George launched 7 sermons called 7 Homilies for the Youth. He did them on the consecutive Wednesdays of Great Lent. And as a result of his preaching, he was punished very seriously. I'll tell you about that in a second. But he was very clear in his sermons. Marxism, secular humanism, is a religion. It's a very bad religion with very bad fruit and no good history. And people who embrace it, forgive me, they've lost their marbles. They've lost their marbles. But he's very clear. He called communism and Marxism a religion, a very bad religion, and a philosophy of hopelessness. So is this secular experiment going on in the United States of America, in the educational sphere, since 1963, when we banned prayer and we banned the Bible from our schools. Nuts! Absolutely nuts. It's time to put an end to those things. Father George, after his 4th sermon, was banned from speaking in the church. And so then he gave his last sermons outside in the plaza, and hundreds of young people came. And for the last sermons, the atheistic authorities even locked the gates. The children, the young people, the college students just climbed the gates. And then he was threatened with death for preaching the truth about the love of God, about Jesus, the Savior of the world, and about freedom and being made in the image of God, never being able to be reconciled with atheism. When he was threatened with death, his response was in the classic martyric spirit. He responded to the threat by announcing a new series of lectures to begin after Pascha. The new series, Christ in Culture. Then he was arrested, and for the second time went back to jail. He had already spent 16 years in prison. He would spend 5 more years in prison, I think from 1979 to 1984, before he was freed and he came to America. In fact, Vice President George Bush went to Romania and demanded the release of Father George. Father George was released, came to America, and spent the last 21 years of his life, from 85 to 2006, serving as a full-time pastor and preaching the gospel everywhere in America and on many trips all throughout Europe. He's right. Atheism is a nasty religion. It is the official religion, whether we acknowledge it or not, of the American public school system, which on principle forbids God, the Bible, and prayer. Let's put an end to this, please. Are we smarter and more well-formed after 50 years of atheistic education? Are our children more mature, more educated, or more healthy? Anyone who knows any of our educational stats knows the answer to that. 100% no. This has been a failed experiment, rotten from the beginning. Let's end the enthronement of secular humanism in American education, and let's end it today. Please, someone, bring another case in another state. Let it get to the Supremes. Let our Supreme Court justices put an end to the reign of atheism in our educational system in this country. Christ is risen. God be with you. A blessed Lord's Day to all of you, brothers and sisters.
For November 17th, on which we commemorate Saint Gregory of Tours.
As we begin this new course in the St. John Chrysostom Catechetical School.
Now available on both Apple and Google Play stores.